What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today in the world of indie games, we're going to be diving back on into Medieval Dynasty. This is a game we covered the initial early access release of, it's got to have been like a year ago now. It was at the release date of the early access, but actually they fired through the early access. This game came out faster than I expected. It is now officially in 1.0. They've got combat, they've got the quests, they've got everything all nice and set up. If you've never played Medieval Dynasty before, a little bit of a synopsis here. The game is a open-world sandbox medieval life sim. So if you've ever played anything sort of like The Guild, it's a bit like that, but from like a Skyrim-esque first-person perspective. Although I guess Skyrim's probably a bad comparison. Kingdom Come Deliverance. There we go. And so anyways, this is the game that takes place somewhere in Eastern Europe. I don't remember exactly what country it's in. It's been so long since I played it last. I'm sure someone will correct me down in the comments. But we're going to dive on in today and take a look at it and see if it's worth your wish list. So, without further ado, look down below in the description if you wanted to get the game or wishlist it. You can also find all my social links down there. I will most assuredly be streaming this game now that it's out in 1.0. So, if from this video you don't get a good idea of whether or not you want to make a purchase, swing on through the stream. I'll probably be playing it for 3, 4, maybe even 8 hours. Kind of depends. You'll also find a link to my Discord, where you're more than welcome to just hit me up and be like, hey man, what did you think of this game that you covered? And you can get a little bit more in-depth analysis there, just in case there's anything that I forgot about when it came to talking to you guys during the video. Because honestly, it uses up some of my brain power playing the game while also monologuing and whatnot. Sometimes I miss things, and then after the video goes live, I think of really astute observations. And then I'm like, well, that's just an opportunity missed. So anyways, let's play some Medieval Dynasty. We will start the game off with everything on the default, but the game is fairly customizable. You can get rid of hunger, you can get rid of thirst, you can get rid of any of the mechanics that you actually don't like.
I used to have a simple life. Whatever needed doing round the farm, I'd do it. Being the eldest son, it's tough. But at least we had a living, and our plates were never empty. Then, the war came. I lost everything overnight. The last thing I remember is Father pushing me away, yelling for me to run, to live. At first, I didn't know what to do. Then, I remembered. A story my mother once told me. A story about my uncle, Jordan. He made a modest fortune up north, in a peaceful valley far away from the war. For weeks I held on to that thought, until the valley from my mother's stories. I could see it. This is where I can start a new life.
Well, I'm pleased to report there was no plop at the beginning of the game. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, the plop, this is a term that I've come up with for like these first-person simulators that are coming out so frequently nowadays. I've noticed at the beginning of the game, like they cut in the video feed too early, so it shows your character just flopping into the world basically just like that. Like basically like the back 1/8 of a fall to earth. There was no plop. It faded in and we were already standing comfortably on screen. So that's good. At the beginning of the game, they're basically going to show us how to survive in a medieval world. But really, this game is open and up to you how you want to play it. You can build entire industries by yourself. You can make a mining encampment. You can make a lumberjacking encampment. You can make like a hunter's station. You can do pretty much whatever it is that you really feel like doing, so long as you can pull together the resources for it. So I'm going to head on down the hill to this little village over here. We're going to talk to the village elder and ask him if he's got anywhere that we can set up a plot of land, and then we're going to get started. Well, here's the village elder. I'm going to go ahead and give him the old chat up and see if there's anywhere around the village that we can just kind of set up our home. For the interest of making the video a little bit more expedient, because we have covered it before, I'm basically going to cut out dialogue when and where I can. There is backstory here. There is a narrative to this game of trying to figure out what happened to your Uncle Jordan. But for those of you that are interested in playing the game for yourself, I'm probably going to omit. That way you can get the full immersive experience, and I'll just show you some gameplay basics over the next 30 minutes. Okay, so the village elder, in summation, was like, yeah, dude, just set up camp wherever you want. So now we got to gather up some sticks, and we got to make our home. We need a couple of rocks. We need a couple of sticks. Luckily, sticks and birch bark seem to be just about everywhere, little birch saplings. So I think we'll be good on that front. Now we got to track down a couple of rocks, though, so that we can make ourselves a cutting tool. Trees don't like to come down unless you apply a little bit of wedge force to them. And so let's see if we can track down any rocks out here. There we go. There's a rock right there. Yeah, it looks like it. Dude, what are my shoes made out of? Looks like my shoes are made out of bull scrote, dude. Yep, this is definitely medieval times. I've got pants that are made out of sheep butt and shoes that are made out of bull scrote. Fantastic. We've got the stuff that we need. Everything in this game can be accessed by holding down the Q key. It's going to take you on into a radial menu. I personally am not a huge fan of radial menus. I find that radial menus tend to be really, really optimal when you're playing something on a controller or on like a console. For PC, I usually actually prefer text lists. That tends to, I know, controversial opinion, that tends to be what I prefer, but obviously that's just sort of like a personal aesthetic choice. We now have an axe. So there it is. You can look at it. Look at what I have whittled. And it wants me to cut down some trees. So let's take a look at this tree cutting action and see if the tree cutting action is satisfactory. Let's see how these things fall. Let's see how they chop. I think one of the most satisfying games to chop trees in that I ever played was The Forest. That's the one that jumps out at me where I was like, yeah, dude, chopping trees feels good. Okay, so it looks like the tree doesn't get like little chips or anything taken out of it. It doesn't actively show the wedge, but it does actively fall, so that's pretty cool. Big old pine tree right there, or some kind of spruce maybe. Some kind of fir. I don't know. I'm not good in the evergreen arena, okay? But this is not fully processed yet. That's the downside, is that we have to, like, process the tree. So as of right now, it's just a tree trunk. We gotta, like, cut it into logs and stuff. They want me to knock... Is that gonna fall on my head, dude? Tree trunks keep falling on my head. There we go. We'll just destroy the environment as much as possible so that we can kind of cut a little hovel into the hillside for ourselves. And then after we get... Oh, I'm all out of energy. So on the bottom left, I guess I didn't talk about the UI. Bottom left couple meters you want to keep track of. This game is survival game influenced. The green is going to be your stamina. The red is going to be your health. With the blue over there, that's going to be your thirst. And then, of course, the yellow, the only thing remaining is going to be your superpowers. No, that's your hunger. So anyways, we've got the trees chopped down, and now we need to go get ourselves some straw. And we can't build roofs without straw. Luckily, straw is down here by the riverside, and it's very, very easy to acquire. If you just look for reeds, that's pretty much it. You just look for bulrushes, and then you'll be good to go. So I'm going to get on in here, and we got to gather up 30 of these. And yes, you are going to be collecting reeds one at a time. I don't want to disappoint you. Okay, so we've got our reedies right now. If you didn't know what they look like, it's these things right here. They don't look like the typical bulrushes like where I live. Where I live, bulrushes are like 8 feet tall. And so these are actually like little tiny baby reeds compared to where I live. Don't go out in the reeds where I live, though. That's a mistake. There's this thing called a St. Andrew's cross spider. It's a spider that's like the size of a Frisbee, and they live in the reeds. It's bad, dude. Don't go out in the reeds. If it's only during the wet season, though. You can go out in the reeds during like the dry season, like summer. But if it's been raining lately, the St. Andrew's cross spiders go up in the rushes in order to make their nests and lay their eggs and spawn their hatchlings. Don't go in there. That's a you're not gonna have a good time. I promise. I bet you're Googling St. Andrew's cross spider right now. It's a horrifying animal. It is like one of the biggest spiders I've ever seen in my life. It's like it's a full-on like Australia spider. All right, it's giant, and like you're not gonna know that you're in their nest until it's too late. This I promise you. We've got to make a hammer. It looks like a hammer is gonna require a couple sticks and a log. Okay, so there's our stick right there. We do need to chop this spruce tree right here. Hey, it said spruce tree on it. Did it say that the entire time? Well, now I just have egg on my face. I have been well and roundly egged, my friend. All right, we'll grab a little bit of that right there, and then we'll make our hammer. and then I will build a house with my hammer. All right, so we've got the hammer, and we've got to build our first house. It's pretty easy peasy. Really the hard part for me, and I don't know if you're anything like me, but with any sim game like this, the hard part for me is picking where I want the house to go. The building part is easy. It's just like I want a place with like a scenic view that's got minimal foot traffic, maybe some noise regulations in place, you know what I mean? Like I want to be able to live in the hinterland by myself without anybody ever talking or interacting with me ever again. And I don't feel like that's too much to ask. I think we should go over to that side over the river. Maybe? I don't know. Let me look around. I actually very much sort of like the idea of that little slope right there, that little hillside, just nesting something right there, and then we can farm on the incline, and then we can fish down by the river. That sounds like a plan to me. I'll be honest, when I was a kid, my granddad moved away. He moved out to the mountains in New Mexico, Arizona, like the border, the White Mountains. He moved on out there because he's always been kind of like grumpy and cantankerous and kind of not a people person. And so he's been a hermit living in the mountains now for like 30 years. And, like, when I was a kid, I didn't understand why he did it. And, like, as I get older, the more I understand it. Like, I've lived in the city for a long time now. I'm from San Francisco, so, like, I've lived in the city sprawl for pretty much my entire life. I do a lot of outdoorsy stuff, and I'm really, really into, like, survivalism and whatnot. But I get it now. Like, living in a cabin out in the middle of nowhere, like, an hour from your nearest neighbor, and just, like, hunting and, like, being on the land sounds just absolutely fantastic. It sounds like the sort of thing that I could really get behind. I don't know. I approve. Let me gather up these logs, and then we'll go on over there and we'll build our house. Okay, so here we are in the location of our previous home. It took me, like, 3 minutes to slow boat over here because I'm stubborn, and I put, like, 900 logs on my back because I'm trying to, like, impress the medieval ladies, and they'd be like, ooh, look how strong he is. Like, I'd be like, yeah, girl. So anyways, all of the houses in this game that I've seen so far have been prefabs. So you start out with this prefab right here, and you can kind of do what you want with it. I'm going to have it sort of face down that way, and I do like that the house goes up on stilts to adjust for the terrain. I never particularly like it when I play stuff like No Man's Sky, for example, where it's very, very easy for your foundations and whatnot to clip into the soil. It gives it sort of a shoddy look to the building that can be kind of annoying. And, like, I know you can upraise your house like I've done it, but you got to go out of your way to do it. And so anyways, here we are. This is the frame of our first house, and if you're wondering how we get this all set up, we have to, where's our hammer at? There we go. I need my hammer. We'll put that on the 2 key right there, and now I've got my hammer, which means that inside of the framework, you can kind of customize a little bit if you want to. So there's our first wall right here. We'll go ahead and hammer on in some sticks, hammer on in some log, and just see if we can get this thing going. Yeah, the wattle wall right there. That's what I like to see. We had a brief talk about wattle walls inside. I don't know if the video's gone live yet at the time of this recording. But anyways, we played a game called Clan Folk, and I had, like, a fun time explaining to you what wattle and daub is. And actually, like, if you build something wattle and daub, I promise you're going to really, this is a really easy, and I'm glad they got it accurately, very easy way to put up walls. So basically, you just have these right here, these sticks right here that get hammered into the frame, wedged into the frame, and then you just weave sticks in and out of it all the way across. And then once you've got yourself a solid wall, you pack it full. You can see it right there too. You pack it full of leaves and mud or clay or whatever you have around, and then you do the same thing with another one on the outside to enclose it for insulation. Very common, pretty much all over the world, honestly, depending on time period. Pretty much everybody ever did wattle and daub. I gotta go gather some more resources, otherwise I don't think my house is ever gonna be complete. So let me go poach the forest until I have more resources, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so now it's time for the thatching to put on the roof. I don't know how segmented this is. This is a different type of thatching than I personally know how to do. So the one that I know how to do effectively is straw bales. You collect straw, and then you wind it into bales, and then you tie the bales together, effectively overlaying the top of the roof. That's how I personally would do it. I was a roofer for a long time, and if I had to do a primitive roof, that's how I personally would roof it, in lieu of not having, like, real shingles and stuff like that. Oh, it's actually segmented. Okay. It's warning me that I'm very hangry right now. But I'm going to continue building up the house right. In fact, it looks like that might have been what they've done. They've just baled the straw differently. Yeah, they've baled the straw wide, so that's all one big piece right there that's just sat on top of the roof, I think. Yeah, That's what it looks like to me anyways. So it looks like they've got a wooden frame right there, and then they just overlay it, sort of like palm fronds almost. Okay. I do like that things in this game look aesthetically accurate. Like, you can tell somebody did their homework what building out of antiquity looks like, because it's the little details, like the stuffing in the walls and whatnot being there, that completely and totally convince me that somebody's job was just to sit around looking at old houses and old building methods. Or at least talk to somebody like a Ren Fair or something. We need a couple more logs, but the night is upon us, and we are kind of hungry. You do start out with some apples and things, so we'll go ahead and get down on some apples. Unfortunately, apples not entirely too filling, but we do have an oat roll over here. I don't know, that's going to give me 55 food, so it's going to be kind of a waste to use it right now. Let me go get some more logs for the project. Well, there was some kind of little badger or something that was following me out here in the woods. You can see him moving right there. He was coming over to investigate. Oh, there's another little woodland friend over on that side. Woodland friend has this tendency to devolve into woodland food before too long whenever I play games like this. So I'm not going to get too attached. We're not going to name them. We're going to follow the old cow rule, the old pig rule. You never name the animal that you're getting ready to eat. That's how you end up with a little bit of heartache going on. I don't know, maybe some people prefer the more personalized experience of eating something you once loved. But, you know, I think that that's one of those things that I'll pass on. That sort of emotional distress is not something that I like to interject into my life all willy-nilly. All right, there you have it. We've got our first little hut all nice and set up. That's where we live at. It ain't much, but it's mine. We've got to go back to town and talk to somebody, I guess, now. Oh, it actually automatically gives you a bed inside of here. Very cool. And it looks like inside the cauldron, we can actually, like, cook stuff. I did find some morels while I was out inside the woods. Like, I found some mushrooms and whatnot. It looks like we need rye grains, oat grains. We also don't have any of this unlocked, unfortunately. So, scrambled eggs with mushrooms. Yeah, that sounds real good. I could do that. That sounds like a winner right there. Okay, it's getting late on in the day, so I figure we'll probably sleep at some point. We do have a storage chest, which is nice. That means that I can kind of, like, store up some of these things for later instead of carrying them around with me. I don't know if you can craft out of chests. That's one of those things that I very much like to check on with games like this. But there's time. We're still very, very early on in our sort of medieval adventure. It's also important to note that this game is an RPG as well. Like, there's a massive skill tree in different categories. So you've got extraction, you've got hunting, you've got farming, you've got diplomacy, you've got survival, you've got production, and each one of these has like a big old tree that you can work your way on up. We leveled up while I was gathering twigs and chopping down trees in the survival aspect, and so I'm of the opinion that I kind of want to learn how to fish. I think that fishing is probably going to be one of the most consistent ways to get ourselves fed. There's a lot of people that I think, they think that hunting's easy. I grew up hunting, and like when you have a rifle and like a deer blind and like everything else, not that hard. But if you're going back to primitive technology, hunting's kind of a pain. Instead, what I would go for is either a gill net or a fish trap. That little riverbank over there where I live, I promise you, since I already know how to do waddle, I'd have probably like 5 or 6 waddle fish traps over there, turtle traps, all that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, if you could make a gill net, this right here is actually fantastic for a gill net, because if you look, right where they've put that bridge right there, there's a choke point, and you could pretty easily gill net that spot right there. If you've never woven a gill net before, gill net effectively is a net that catches fish by the gills. It does exactly what it says, and you usually want it at like a choke point in like a river or like a tributary, because the fish have to pass through there, and then they have to swim through the net, and it increases the chance that they're going to get caught up in it, and then you got yourself dinner. And so anyways, that would be, I would lean pretty heavily on fishing if I was in this situation personally, assuming that there's trout, or I don't even know in Eastern Europe what there might be out there, like walleyes, trout. I have honestly no clue. But anyways, we got to talk to somebody over here. All right. Okay, so the town elder told us to come over here and talk to this lady right here so that we could get ourselves a free meal. But in order to get that free meal, I got to deliver it to somebody over here. So we'll just get ourselves all nice and fed. There are reputations in this game, so you make friends with people, you learn their story. It's got a little bit of like a Stardew Valley bent to some of the content, which I think is a really, really good idea. Stuff like that tends to pull the player in and make them feel immersed in like a part of the world, which is, I think, a lot of games swing and miss on that front where it feels like you're playing a game. I feel like this game does a really, really good job of allowing you to just kind of like sink into the world and like lose yourself. All right, back at home after a long walk from the village. I do like that the developers took a shot on playing with what moonlight looks like. Too many survival games get it wrong and they just make it pitch black at night. But like, for example, where I live, if the moon is out and it's like waxing or waning in like a earlier phase, you know what I mean? Like you can see everything. It's very, very bright. And so I do like the way that they actually went out of their way to simulate moonlight coming through. And you can see it cutting through the trees right there with the God rays. Graphical fidelity-wise, I think they did a great job at actually making the game look good. We got to sleep for right now, and so we'll sleep till the next day. We'll get our energy all nice and revitalized. Doesn't look like we lose any hunger or thirst as a punishment for sleeping, which is actually a feature that I kind of like. Like I know that like you get hungry and whatnot. That's why breakfast is so important. It's the meal of kings, you know what I mean? But for video game purposes, I do like that you kind of keep your status in between rests. We do have a couple oat rolls here. I think it's a good idea for us to go on in and eat one of the oat rolls. That'll get our hunger filled up. We shouldn't have to eat for pretty much the rest of the day. I don't think I've ever had an oat roll now that I think about it. I don't think I've ever had bread that's made with oats. Like, I've had bread that has oats, like, on it. You know what I mean? Like a wheat bread. Like, I always eat wheat bread. I'm a big wheat bread guy. I also like rye bread the same way. I like those thick, heavy beer breads. Always have. But, like, never seen one that was actually made with, like, oat flour. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. See if I see any oat flour bread around and give that a shot. See if it's something tasty. Let's head back to town. I gotta go talk to some folks and figure out what they want me to do next in order to increase my status and earn that chain of office. So I'm thinking, now that we've gone back to the village and we've sort of figured out what our next course is, we really need to accumulate some technology. I think that's the next thing that's going to benefit us by, like, a lot. And so in order to get technology in this game, you get XP for everything you do. So, like, while I'm picking up sticks, I get XP for that. I would like to see some level of, like, XP pop-up, maybe, that could be enabled and disabled inside the options. In fact, it may be there. I don't honestly know. I haven't dug through the options just yet. But you do accumulate two things by doing tasks throughout the realm. And even stuff as simple as harvesting a moral off the ground that you find, like, right here gives you survival XP. And so anyways, we're accumulating technology right now, but I think a fast way to get technology and get us into hunting and fishing is going to be to make a trap line. And so ideally, I think that it's a really, really good idea to start making rabbit traps. We can only make one rabbit trap as of right now. That's not very much. That's a bit of a bummer. We will be able to make more traps in our trap line as we level up our ability to trap. But for right now, we can only keep track of one trap at a time. And so anyways, I don't think we can place it on a road, but in this little open area over here, just kind of next to the house, in real life, this is not where I would put it because there's a pretty slim chance that a rabbit's going to come by here. I'd probably put it off in the wooded oaks over there or something like that, or maybe off in the thicket. But for right now, getting that up, that'll supply us with some level of supplementary XP towards our trapping and our hunting. And that'll help out a little bit. Other things that we can take a look at, we don't particularly have any points pretty much anywhere. So I think with our hunting and our trapping, we're going to have to figure that out. I don't know what level 1 fishing gave us. So this is actually just survival knowledge right here. I had saw the fishing icon and I had assumed that it would give us some kind of fishing technology. Not the case. It just makes us get more XP by doing hunting and trapping stuff. We do have a quest to go talk to a guy named Sandbox, who's way off over on the sidelines over there, and I don't particularly think we have any recipes to really build anything at the moment. We're sort of like waiting for unlocks. We can make a farm field right there, which is kind of an interesting idea. We've got all kinds of crafting buildings right here, from smithies to sewing and everything else. I'm just giving you kind of like a rough idea of everything that exists around here. There's animal husbandry. I mean, there's a lot of things to work on, and some of this stuff is actually pretty resource intensive when you're trying to get it put together. But that's the rough idea of Medieval Dynasty. This is a game that, I mean, if you take a look at the world map, we are right over here. That's pretty much the entire size of the world map right there, and you can pretty much free roam and wander wherever you want to go. There's quests, there's activities, there's relationships to be built with all of these people, places, and things. And so aside from just building up your own colony and getting things going off over to the side right here, this game is effectively a cornucopia of content that you can play around with, and I'm fairly excited by that prospect. I really liked Kingdom Come Deliverance, but it focused very heavily on sort of like the trials and travails of becoming a knight in the medieval world, and so you weren't really farming or doing any of the side stuff along the way. This is a game that goes in the other direction and tries to convince you that, like, hey, the humdrum of normal peasant life actually had, like, a lot of things to get done and a lot of things to work on. It could make a compelling gameplay platform upon which to sort of, lay the foundation for gameplay. And so anyways, I will be streaming this game. I'm really looking forward to streaming it. In fact, I had no idea that the game was coming out so soon. It's called Medieval Dynasty, and I hope you guys liked it. My name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile every single day in the world of indie games so that you don't have to. I'll be back tomorrow with something hot and fresh off the skillet, but for right now, it's time for me to bid you all a fond farewell. Bye, everybody, and take care.